In New York Harbor stands a lady with a torch raised to the sky, and all who see her know she stands for liberty for you and me. I'm so proud to be called an American, to be named with the brave and the free. I will honor our flag and our trust in God and the Statue of Liberty. On lonely Golgotha stood a cross with my Lord raised to the sky, and all who kneel there live forever, as all the saved can testify. I'm so glad to be called a Christian, to be named with a ransom and hope, as the statue liberates the citizen, so the cross liberates the soul. Oh, the cross is my statue of liberty. It was there that my soul was set free. Unashamed, I'll proclaim that the old rugged cross is my statue of liberty. Unashamed, I'll proclaim that the old rugged cross is my statue of liberty. My liberty.
They do have one more song, and this was a special request that goes along with the message. And I just thought of it Friday, and I talked to Phyllis, and she said that Jim was going to be doing a song, so I messaged him. So unlike having a year and a half to prepare for a song, they've had maybe one day.
And we are not the Statler Brothers or the Cathedral Quartet. We haven't even practiced this yet.
So say a quick prayer.
Check 1, 2.
And this goes with the message, though, so
Okay. Check 1, 2. There's my buddy back there, Ben, right? Okay, Ben. Let me see where I'm at. No, you don't have to hold it. Just do the chorus. This Old House is the name of the tune. This old house once knew my children. This old house once knew a wife. This old house was home and comfort as we fought the storms of life. This old house once rang with laughter. This old house heard many shouts. Now she trembles in the darkness when the lightning walks about. Need this house no longer, ain't gonna need this house no more. Ain't got time to fix the shingle, ain't got time to fix the floor. Ain't got time to no hinges, no to fix no window pane. Ain't gonna need this house no longer, I'm getting ready to meet the saints. This old house is getting shaky. This old house is getting old. This old house lets in the rain, and this old house lets in the cold. Oh, my knees are getting chilly, but I feel no pain. I seen an angel peeking through a broken window pane. Ain't gonna need this house no longer, ain't gonna need this house no more. Ain't got time to fix this shingle, ain't got time to fix the floor. Ain't got time to no hinges, no to window pane. Ain't gonna need this house no longer, I'm getting ready to meet the saints. This old house is afraid of thunder. This old house is afraid of storms. This old house just groans and trembles when the night flings down its arms. This old house is getting feeble. This old house is in needing paint. Just like me, it's tuckered out, but I'm getting ready to meet the saints.
Ain't gonna need this house no longer, ain't gonna need this house no more.
Ain't got time to fix the shingles, ain't got time to fix the door. Ain't got time to no hinges, no to mend no window pane. Ain't gonna need this house no longer, I'm getting ready to meet the saints. Okay, now my old hound dog lies asleepin'. He don't know I'm gonna leave, cause he's wake up by the fireplace and he sit there and howl and grieve. But my hunting days are over, I ain't gonna hunt no coon no more. Gable done brought in my chariot when the wind blowed down the door. Ain't gonna be
This house no longer, ain't gonna need this house no more.
Ain't got time to fix the shingle, ain't got time to fix the floor. Ain't got time to no hinges or to window pane. Ain't gonna need this house no longer, I'm getting ready to meet the saints. Ready to meet the saints.
Well, I don't know about you, but I don't think I should have given them any more time to practice. I mean, that's just pretty ridiculous that just in a matter of a day, they can just get up there and do that. But I do appreciate it, Jim, and I appreciate you all for joining in with him. That was awesome. We are continuing through the book of Ecclesiastes. We've got to chapter 12, so if you could turn there and follow along, that would be fantastic. That way you see what I am going to read to you initially here. We're going to read the first 8 verses of Ecclesiastes chapter 12. And as I'm reading it, just look at the descriptions and how it's describing what that song just was. And that's why it popped into my mind, although it popped in a little bit late. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark and the clouds return after the rain, when the keepers of the house, or I should say this old house, tremble and the strong men stoop, when the grinders cease because they are few and those looking through the windows grow dim, when the doors to the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades, When people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint. When people are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets. When the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags itself along and desire no longer is stirred. Then people go to their eternal home and mourners go about the streets. Remember him before the silver cord is severed and the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring and the wheel broken at the well, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is meaningless. Well, we've come to the climax of Solomon's writing, and his writing, if you remember, is his account of what it's like to live under the sun from the perspective of being under the sun. And if you remember, we talked early on that he had this relationship with the Lord when he was younger, but he had come to a point where he drifted away from the Lord. He cut his ties from the God he once loved and once had communication with, and now he has been looking at life from just an earthly perspective. And in that atmosphere, Solomon is going to come to some wrong conclusions. I mean, you will recall probably, if you know Solomon and his story, Solomon was known as the wisest man who ever lived. Now, I told you, and this has been many weeks ago, that Ecclesiastes is really, to me, a philosophical book. It's a book of philosophy, and Solomon was indeed a philosopher. He was wise in philosophy. He knew these things, and he's given us, throughout this book, he's given us a couple of premises. The first one that he does is he says this: all of life's labor, all of our existence is under the sun. Everything we do is done under the sun. His second one is a little bit different. It's everything under the sun is meaningless. Now, if you take those two premises together, this is the conclusion that he comes up with. He concludes that everything that we do, all of our life, is indeed meaningless. And that's why that phrase is repeated: meaningless, meaningless. Or if you're looking at some of the other translations, vanity of vanities. He's saying that there's no meaning to it, but I want to just point out that his reasoning is flawed. Now, he should have known better. Remember, there was a point when he had a relationship with God. He would talk to God, he would communicate with God, but he still, though, accepts this premise. He accepts that all of labor and all of existence under the sun happens, and it's all meaningless. So in other words, what Solomon does is when he takes God out of the picture, when he removes God from his life, he reaches a conclusion that is wrong. Now that should tell us something, because he's a very wise man, and that means that we are all at risk for doing the same thing. For thinking that life is meaningless because we've taken the God, the Creator, out of the picture. Now, tomorrow, we all know tomorrow is Memorial Day, and most Americans will pause and they will take time to remember. Remember those that left to serve in the country, the military, serve the country, but they didn't return home. This isn't Veterans Day, this is Memorial Day. When those who didn't return home, we take a time to remember they paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. Now, Solomon is doing something similar in this passage. Solomon is looking towards the cross, although he doesn't really know that. He's looking towards the cross, and he doesn't understand the sacrifice that God is going to make by sending his one and only Son to die so that mankind can be reconciled. He doesn't realize that, but he is, you can see, remembering his Creator. He's remembering God. It's starting to be brought back into the picture, and his eyes are now transitioning from an earthly perspective to now a heavenly perspective. And this is the only way that you and I can understand life. Life really will never make sense until you bring God into the picture. You know, you can struggle, you can try, you can contemplate, you can do a lot of tests like he does. But if you remember the opening verses of chapter 12, Solomon is giving us this picture. He wants us to see something. He wants us to see a picture of life. He's doing sort of like a dramatization. He starts out with a youth. someone that's young. We don't have an age or anything like that, but he's going to carry it all the way through life and explain what happens as we age. And if you're going to find meaning and purpose in that aging process, you're going to have to bring God into the picture. Otherwise, it's going to be meaningless. This morning, you and I, we're in this drama of life. We might be at different stages, but we're in it. And our stage is the world. Wherever you live at, that's your stage. If you really want to make sense of where you're at in life and what you are doing in life, then you should pay attention to what Solomon is saying. He has some valuable words. Throughout this whole journey in the book of Ecclesiastes, some of his words were just alarming. They were confusing. He's now bringing it together to say there was a reason why I did this, and now it's bringing me back to God. In verse number 1, he's starting really at life's beginning. He says, remember your Creator and the days of your youth. When you're young, remember your Creator. Remember God. And if you remember last week, he was referring back to the youth again, and he said basically the same thing. And this is a message that every young person should grasp this morning. They should be excited to hear that there is one thing, if you will do this, your life will be vastly different than if you don't. Solomon, I'm sure, was looking back thinking, boy, I wish I would have never left that first love. I wish I would have kept him at the center. Now, when you're young, the youth, we all look back at it, it's like a carefree time, isn't it? I mean, you go to school, yeah, things seem really bad, they seem really complicated, but you really don't have too much you got to worry about. I mean, especially if you have good parents. You got good parents, you just go home, you get to eat, you're well fed. Yeah, I know the parents are mean, they're rude, they do all kinds of crazy things that you don't like. But after you get a little older, you start to realize, yeah, man, I wish I could go back to that. Why did I leave home so quick? I should have just stayed there, because now you start to get responsibilities and you get things. When you're young, sometimes you get to just sleep in. You just get to relax. You don't have to get up, except for school. I know that's kind of crazy and stuff and terrible. I mean, when you're young, that's generally when you go on your first date. There's exciting times. It's carefree days. You really don't have that much responsibility. But the days of your youth are also crucial days. They're days that can set the course of your life. Some of the most important decisions you make will be made when you're young. You establish the values that you're going to live by. Hopefully your parents give you good values and you embrace them. But if you have God in your life, you're getting godly values. If you embrace those when you're young, it makes the rest of your life a lot easier. When you're young, that's when you start planning your future. Now, I know most of us would say, well, our future changed drastically from what we had, the plans that we laid. But if you think about it, a lot of the times it's because we laid plans without considering God. We were thinking what we want to do. And yes, so it's changed once you come to God. But Solomon is saying, remember your Creator in the days of your youth. He's saying, give your life to Jesus when you're young. Surrender to Him. Come to Christ when you're young. Don't wait. Now, that's the reason for this, I believe, is because we can look at statistics today and look at it. Statistics show that older people have a lot harder time coming to Christ. The older you get, you start to get set in your ways, and it's a lot harder for you to come to know the Lord and to serve Him. And I was considering this, and as I was thinking about my age and stuff, I did something which I probably shouldn't have done, but I did it. I was calculating my life. I went to a site, and I looked the average age that someone dies for a male. Ladies, you get a little more than 4 years longer than us, so you guys are blessed. But the average in the United States is 76.3 years old. That's for a male. So I compared that lifespan of someone, and I was comparing, 76.3, and I put it on basically a clock, a 24-hour clock, just to see what time I would be at. And I'm 56 years old. It's 5:30 p.m., and at 12 p.m., my clock is over, based upon the averages. And it's already 5:30 p.m. If you're 18, we have one graduate here, it's probably right about 18. Man, it is only 5:45 a.m. So it seems like you got a pretty long day left ahead of you. 25, 8 a.m., 35, 11:05, a.m. If you're 45, it's 2:10 p.m. If you're 60, it's 7 p.m. If you're 70, it's 10 p.m. And if you're a male in the United States and you're age 80, you're on borrowed time. Praise the Lord, right? You got a little extra. Now, ladies, I mean, you get to live a little bit longer. You're 80.7 years. So all I can just tell you that, if you are at the 80 years or older age, it's midnight or past. Pat, I know that's not good news, is it? But praise the Lord, look at that, man. You're doing another day. Yeah, she gets another day. Isn't that great? But that's why he's saying, remember your Creator in the days of your youth. Set that course early. Now, we all know that the averages aren't for everybody. We all know people that died when they were young. And there's people that do. They live past that. But that's the average. What time are you and what are you doing with your life? Don't waste your life and wait to the end to get right with the Lord. Don't waste your life and decide, I wish I would have done something differently. Don't come to Christ late in life and say, I'm just going to give him whatever I have left. Now, I should say, yes, come to Christ if you haven't. But don't wait if you're young. Don't wait and say, one day I will do that. I remember hearing a story about a wise Christian lady, and she overheard some girls talking one day. And the girls, one of them was saying, man, you know what, I'm going to go live it up. I'm going to go party. I'm going to go do all these things and stuff like that. And then later on, when I get a little bit older, I'm going to come and I'm going to get right with Christ. But right now, I'm going to party. I'm going to live it up. I'm going to do all these things. And the wise Christian lady, she had got some flowers and sent them to her. They were wilted flowers, some wilted roses. She sent them to the girl in the mail, delivered them to him. The next time she saw this young lady that was boasting about partying and doing all that, she looked a little sad, a little bit distraught. So she said, hey, did you get the roses that I sent you? He said, well, yeah, I did, but I was a little bit disappointed because when I opened them up, they were all wilted. They were dying. There wasn't no life left in them. And she said, oh, well, yeah, that's because I got them on Monday. I put them in a vase. I enjoyed them and all that. And when they started to wilt, I thought of you. So I wrapped them up and I sent them to you. But when I had them, they were all fresh. They were beautiful. They smelled great. They were just lovely flowers. But when they were ready to die, I wanted to give you what was left over. And she said, young lady, that is exactly what you're talking about doing with the Lord. You're saying that you're going to enjoy the best days of your life. And then once they're gone, once you're older, then you're going to go to the Lord and you're going to surrender. And you're going to give him whatever remains. And she says, that's what you're doing. Don't do that. Now, I know that might sound like some harsh words for some people because I would imagine that there's some people here that do that very thing. Maybe not quite in dramatic fashion, but they're thinking, one day I'm going to get right with God. One day I'm going to quit doing the things that I want to do. And one day I'm going to surrender. But I just want to encourage you and tell you, why are you waiting if you're going to do it? Why don't you do it this morning? Why don't you do it right now? Say, Lord, I'm done doing what I've been doing. I'm going to serve you. I'm going to do it right now. Don't spend your life on the things of this world, and then towards the end, say, I'll give you whatever's left, Lord. I know my time's about up. I'm going to give you that. Solomon in here, and that's one of the reasons I wanted that song to be played, is because he discusses life's aging. And the song gives some nice nuances to it about some of the things. But he says in verse 1, he says, and this is a graphic presentation, I think. It's really a great presentation of the whole process. He says, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Now, the before is passing back to say, remember your Creator. Before these things happen, he says, give your life to the Lord when you're young. I would say no matter what age you are, now is the time that you decide. You don't wait for another minute, another second. You decide, I'm going to surrender whatever I have left. And Solomon, he teaches us this process of aging. It's irreversible. We don't get to go back and live our former days. I know we imagine it sometimes, but we don't get to go there. I can't get a do-over on things that I did wrong. I can learn from them. I can use them for God's glory. I can do those things, but I can't relive them. I can't take those things away. And he's teaching us that it's inevitable. If you keep living, you will get old. 100% of you. Now, the process of aging is not fun. I remember hearing many people used to say that getting old isn't for sissies, and I used to laugh. Well, look who's not laughing now. I'm not that old, but I can tell you it's not for sissies, and I don't think it's funny. So if you're young, don't say that, don't think that, because it's coming. It's coming. Verse 2 says, before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark, he's really speaking of things that are going on mentally. Mentally, as you start to get older, you do start to lose a few of your faculties at certain times. Maybe not all the time, hopefully not all the time. But the light is referring to increasing joy. The darkness, it refers to gloom. There's times as you get older, you have some gloomy experiences. You can't remember. You can be walking to do something. You can have your tools in your hand even, and you get there and you forget what you're going to do. It's just so easy to do. There's a tendency because of this that depression can come in. I mean, you can start to get depressed, like, man, I can't do the things that I used to do. There's a tendency to have gloom and despair, and it starts to come in, and you're thinking like, man, I just don't have any worth now. I can't keep up with what I need to keep up. It says the clouds, they return after the rain. You know what that means? It means life gets more and more difficult. It's not going to get easier. I wish I could tell you. You know, if you're living life under the sun and that's your only perspective of it, it is not getting easier. Yeah, you might gain some more wisdom and some other things, but your life is not going to get easier under the sun. In verse 3, we encounter physical aging. This is the really fun part. You know, the mental is challenging enough, but notice what he does is he compares it to a house. This old house. That's what it is. When the keepers of the house tremble. In the song, they even had the word tremble in it. He's referring to the physical body here. And if you remember in 2 Corinthians 5:1, it says this, for we know that if the earthly tent we live in, if the house that we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal home in heaven. That's great news, but that's not what Solomon is talking about for us to look there at this point. He's talking about this physical dwelling that we have. And his perspective isn't pleasant at all. When they sang that song, I was just excited because it's relevant. Solomon is talking about here. He's talking about this old body of ours that tends to start to wear down. Now, even if you can still do the things you used to do, you surely don't do them as fast most of the time. You know, it's just one of those things, you know, our body is falling apart. He's describing the typical aging process. And if you look around, some people age well. I mean, I see some of these farmers, some of them are, or at least they appear to be aging well. I mean, they can still do a lot of things, and they're keeping up, and that's great and things, but, you know, I don't know. You know, their house is going to start trembling if it's not already. Those arms, the older you get, you know, you start to lose some of the strength in your arms. You can't quite do the things you were. I was reminded of that because Madison, you know, she was coming home, and a garage where she had a tire fixed had told her she needed brakes front and back. They gave her a price. They gave her the college student price. It was like $1,800 for front and rear. I guess that's a college girl student price. You know, so she called me. Praise the Lord for that. You know, and I said, don't do it. I said, just bring them home. Well, I couldn't find anyone that was open Saturday, so Caden, you know, I was so thankful that he was there. He said, well, we can do them. Now, I don't think he's ever changed brakes. He said he saw some people change brakes. Now, I've changed brakes a lot, but so I go and I get the brakes, pads, and rotors. It was just over $200 for everything. Front pads, rotors, front and back we got. Well, we're sitting there working on it. I took the first tire off, and I'm done. I mean, literally, I'm wore out. Now, they were 19-inch tires, but I'm just exhausted, you know. In fact, a few times he had to help me get back up. You know, and I just thought, boy, I shouldn't be preaching this because now I'm preaching to myself. You know, my back hurts. I was tired. I was exhausted. And he did almost all the work. I was just there just to point some things out. He did pretty much all the work. I didn't put a single tire back on because I was like, ain't no way I'm lifting that up. And trying to get that on. You know, it's a little bit weird putting a tire on. I said, I ain't doing that. You know, we don't do things as fast or as easy as what we used to when you start to get older. So enjoy your youth, but just remember, it's a-coming. It's a-coming. Then he goes on and he says, when the grinders cease because they are few. Now he's talking about the teeth, You have a few teeth left, maybe, they're just not quite there. Now it's interesting because, as he's writing this, they don't have dentists back there. You don't go say, listen, I'm just going to get me a new set of teeth or anything like that. But it's hard to chew food when you don't have much teeth and stuff in there. Last week when I was sharing some things about, what it means or how you know when you're getting old, I said when you sink your teeth into a steak and they stay there. Well, that's what it's talking about here. That's you're getting old, your teeth just aren't working the way they should be. Then he says, those looking through the windows grow dim. Your eyesight isn't as good as what it once was. Now, I can read. Now, when I have my notes and stuff here, it's 16 font. So yeah, I can read, it's really good, but I can't read the screen back there without my glasses on. So the eyes start to grow dim, and I'm to the point now where my next step is going to be getting a dog and a little cane. One of those seeing things, I'll be like this, walking around. Because if it gets worse, I'm thinking like, wow. And most of you know, I have a little bit of eye problems. I got the progressive lenses. Some of you have those. Some have bifocals, trifocals, or whatever. But most of you here probably have something to help you see. That's because most of you here are past noon. I'll say it nicely. We got some that aren't, but that's just what it is. So you might be right there with me getting a dog and a cane. And then we'll have a new church. It'll be the Dog and Cane Church of God. Verse 4, he says, when the doors to the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades. Do any of you struggle a little bit with hearing? Maybe some people have hearing aids even. You just don't hear things. There's that. And as we get older, I know, guys, we have selective hearing. But this is a little bit different than selective hearing. This is just you just don't hear as well as what you used to. He continues, when the people rise up at the sound of birds. He's saying when you get older, often, I don't know if this is always true. I have to see, because now that you're retired, I have to see maybe it's not. But usually you do. You start to get up earlier. You're getting up. You're just getting going. You're doing things. So I know my mom, she still gets up real early in the mornings. And that's just what it is. You get older. Now, I've always got up earlier, so I hope I don't get up any earlier. But when you're young, you could have a freight train drive right by your bed and you still sleep through it. When I was in the service, I remember in the Marines, I could sleep through anything. I used to sleep on Amtraks. I'd have my helmet tucked down, my butt of the rifle, and I'd be like this, and my head would be bouncing, and I'd fall asleep. I could do that. I can't do that anymore. Things are a little bit different. He says, but all their songs grow faint. Now, we don't hear quite as well as we did. We don't hear the music. But I will say something else. As you get older, you don't like the music just as loud as you used to anyways. Most of us would not like it if we pulled up in here and had a rock band on stage and they were really just going at it. We'd be thinking, man, you got to turn that down. We're going to have to get earplugs to hand out or something, because it's just too loud. Because most of us don't want real loud music. It disturbs us. It bothers us. And yet we don't hear as well as some of the younger people. So I don't know why. It doesn't make sense. It's just the truth. Verse 5 says, when people are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets, the older someone gets, the more prone they are to something happening to them when they're out in the streets, the streets of life. I'm not talking about walking across the street here. I'm just talking about going about your daily business. You're more prone to something happening. For me, I'm prone to going to Kroger's, and if I don't have a list written down, I'm prone to not knowing what I went to Kroger's for. I'm prone to all sorts of tragic things like that. When the almond tree blossoms. Now, I don't have my glasses on, so I don't know when this has happened to many of you, but it's talking about getting gray. So you can look around, look at your neighbor and see, is it gray? Now, I know some of us, we get just color our hair, and it makes it stay a lot better and stuff like that. But as you get older, your hair gets gray. It starts to change. He goes on, and the grasshopper drags itself, and desire no longer is stirred. The Living Bible translation says, a white-haired old man dragging himself along. Even moving around becomes a burden, and desire shall fail. And really what he's talking about there is like a sexual desire, and it's diminishing. It's not the same as it was when he was young. He's talking about age, and he's expressing the things that happen in life. This is what you have to look forward to, young people. And if you don't believe me, just ask those around you that are a little bit older than you. You might be young right now, but live a little while. Life doesn't stand still, but it does progress towards a common end. We all have the common end that it progresses to. The end of verse 5 says, then people go to their eternal home and mourners go about the streets. Now, I've heard some of you talk about this. The older you get, it seems like the more funerals you start to attend. People that you grew up with, people that you knew real well. As you're getting older, if you live long enough, you go to a lot of funerals of friends, of acquaintances, of people that you went to church with. Because man is on their way to their eternal home. That's where we're heading, is to an eternal home. And then he comes and he concludes in verses 6 through 8. He's concluding this dramatization of life. And he pictures dying in two ways in verse 6. He says, the silver cord is severed, and the golden bowl is broken. See, the picture is of a golden bowl, and it's fastened to this cord. And it's just hanging there. And when the cord snaps, what happens to the bowl? It crashes down, and it just shatters into thousands of pieces. And the cord that he's referring to is this brittle cord of life. It's what we all have. It doesn't matter your age. It's a brittle cord that can snap because life is fragile. Life can be taken just like that. It can be gone quick. All it takes is an accident. All it takes is one serious illness. Any number of things. And no matter what your age is, life can be over. Then he compares it to a well that's outside of this old house. Before the pitcher is shattered at the spring, and the well broken at the well, or the wheel broken at the well. He's referring back. Remember before, he wants you to remember your Creator before this happens. And there's this old well, there's a pitcher and a wheel, and as he's letting it down, the wheel breaks. And all of a sudden, there it goes, the pitcher goes, and it crashes at the bottom of the well. On the day that we take our final breath, no matter what the age is, whether you live longer or shorter or right at what the expected age of whether you're male or female, no matter what it is, there's going to be a point when if you was hooked up to machines, you're going to have a flat line and there's going to be a buzz and your life on this earth will have ended. You will have gone into eternity at that point. And in verse 7, this is the hope that he says, and the dust returns to the ground it came from. See, death is a reversal of creation. Most of you remember, if you grew up in Sunday school, or you know the story of creation, God takes dust from the ground and he forms Adam. He breathes into a man the breath of life, and man becomes a living being. That's what he does. Well, dust you were formed from, dust you will return to. Death reverses that whole process. And this old body that we have, this old house that we live in and that we dwell in, that we take so much for granted, so often will eventually return to dust. And then he says, listen to this, he says, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Amen. Sooner or later, you're going to have to face God. You're going to have to be in the presence of the Lord. See, God has a script for your life. He knows the appointed time that you will eventually reach your end. He has given you as a stage for your life the whole world. The drama is for us to live for Him. But so often what we do is we make another choice and we do what we want to do, and it takes our course all over the place. And we can't find meaning. We can't find purpose. Oh, yeah, we get meaning every now and then. We find a good career, so we think that gives us meaning. But eventually you realize it doesn't really give you true, lasting meaning. It gives you a moment that's a fleeting moment of meaning, a flow of just a moment where you think that you have it figured out. But if you don't have God, nothing really makes sense. One day you and I will all both go and stand before the creator of the universe. We have been really on quite a journey going through Ecclesiastes, and we have one left. But with all of Solomon's experience, with all of the tests that he did earlier on, we didn't read that today. I mean, he was doing tests and he was searching for the meaning of life. And now we came, and this morning we read some really haunting pictures of mortality, things that really stick in your mind because they're just vivid expressions of what life truly is. And he's using those to reinforce his point. And his point, the point that he's reinforcing, he mentions again the same cry that he did in the second verse of Ecclesiastes in chapter 1. Meaningless, meaningless, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Well, you get the sense that he's saying life's meaningless, don't you? He repeats it 4 times in that old short phrase. That's the number one word that he has there. And he says everything, it's all inclusive, is meaningless. And his point seems to be justified. When you look at it from that perspective, it looks like that is a true, justified saying. That's the truth. That's what life is. There's no purpose. There's no meaning. Nothing in his search that he's come to, nothing in this life that he's experienced gives him meaning. Nothing that we're offered in this life. You might have a lot of things. You might have acquired a lot of things. You could have barns and tractors, and you could have cars and a beautiful home. You could have all these different toys, but you know what? They're not yours to keep. Nothing in life is meaningless from this perspective. But this is one of the reasons why, and you probably heard me say it, context is king, but context is crucial when you want to understand what Scripture is saying. If you don't know the context of the passage, you're not going to come away with what the truth is of the passage. The preceding 7 verses that we just went through, verses 1 through 7, points us beyond things that are just under the sun. He points us to something else. He begins with, remember your Creator. He's pointing somewhere else. That's the context, the very first words, remember your Creator, and that's an invitation. He's inviting you to remember. He's not ordering you to remember. He's just saying, hey, you need to remember your Creator. And he also points us to another thing in verse 6. He's pointing us to the present. No matter where you're at on the spectrum of life, he's pointing you, he's inviting you to make a decision when he says, remember him in verse 6. See, and the reason is because death has not reached you yet. You're still on this side of life. And Solomon is merely saying that death's inevitability, death's certainty, demands a response. And the response that he's calling, the invitation he's given, is remember your Creator, remember him. And it's no wonder that he says again, meaningless, meaningless, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Because if all you have is your beauty, all you have is your strength, all you have is when you're young, you have that stuff there. Even if you acquire a fortune, even if you have all that, if that's all you have is your physical appearance, your beauty, and you have a bunch of toys and a bunch of things, and you're living your life considering only that, eventually you're going to get old, and you're going to realize that life is short, and eventually you're going to become an old, miserable man or an old, miserable woman, and you're just going to be sitting there knowing that you're going to die soon. Amen. But when you live your life remembering your Creator, oh, how the picture changes. When you see things from an earthly perspective, when you understand the promise that he has for life eternal, it changes everything. Then the aging process isn't so bad. Because when you die, you continue to live. You live for all eternity. You don't have to come to the end of your life filled with gloom, filled with despair, filled with depression, thinking, oh, where did my life go? What happened to it? This is just so meaningless. I don't have many more years left, and then it's all gone, and somebody else gets my stuff. No, when you come to the end of your life as a believer, and that silver cord of life is severed, it's not over for the child of God. He'll go on to a new world to be with his King of Kings, Jesus Christ. He'll get to be in his presence forever and ever. Now, I would just say, I know many of you know the Lord as your Savior. Many of you have a personal relationship with him. Some of you did have, and you've kind of wandered away from that possibly. And if it did, I would just say this morning, accept the invitation to return. Allow God to be in your life. Allow him to direct your steps. Allow him to be the center of your life. See, verse 1, it gives a challenge to the youth, the young folks. But verse 6 is a plea to those that are still, they haven't made the decision yet. See, God keeps on calling, and he says, remember him. Your days are about up. Remember him. Don't wait. It says before. That's the word that he keeps using. Before this. It's because remember him now. You have an opportunity. Take the opportunity. Will you come this morning and will you remember? Will you set him as the Lord of your life? Will you surrender to him all your days? If you're young, surrender when you're young. Come to know Jesus as your Savior. If you're older, surrender before it's too late. And really, you could say it doesn't matter what age you are because you don't know the days that you have left. So the call is really this: remember him. You know, it's kind of fitting, and that's why I didn't really preach a Memorial Day thing, because this is about remembrance. And it's just fitting. Remember. Remember your Creator. Remember him. Today's the day of salvation. Tomorrow's not promised. Don't wait. I'm going to ask Phyllis if she can come up and lead us in a song. And if you would like to get your life right with the Lord, I would just invite you to come down. We'll pray with you, and we can give you whatever you need to get you started, whether it's encouragement. If you've drifted away and God is no longer at the center of your life, just come this morning and allow him to make